He tried to embarrass her on live TV by mocking her cross necklace. But what Jasmine Crockett said next stopped the room cold and sparked a national conversation no one saw coming. The studio lights felt harsher than usual. Maybe it was the topic, or just one of those mornings where tension lingered before a word was spoken. The aircon hummed above the set of Real Point Weekly, a conservative cable show shot in Dallas, Texas, known for sharp jabs and viral moments. Clayton Ward, the host, sat stiff in his chair, starched suit, no smile, and a tone that always felt like a challenge. He glanced at his notes, then flicked his eyes up at Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, seated across from him. Under the hot lighting, she was calm and poised, wearing a slate gray blazer and a slim gold cross necklace that caught the light. She'd been invited to discuss education reform, but if anyone thought they'd stick to the agreed talking points, they hadn't worked with Ward before. Congresswoman Crockett, he said, leaning in slightly, before we talk policy, I just got to ask, that necklace, is that for the cameras, or do you actually believe what that stands for? It took less than 3 seconds for the crew to stiffen, for the director to whisper, "Are you kidding me?" 3 seconds for Jasmine to blink once, lips tightening. People watching at home saw it live. Just a smug question tossed out like a lit match, and everyone waiting to see if she'd burn it all down. She could have snapped. People expected that. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She just said, "Is that really how we're starting?" The air shifted, silence feeling louder than noise. Clayton smirked, brushing it off. "It's just a question. You wear it so often, I figured it was messaging." Jasmine's voice came back clear and smooth. "You see a cross and assume performance. I see it, and I think about how I held it in my palm at my grandmother's funeral. I think about the nights I sat on the floor, whispering prayers that no one else heard. So if you think that's a show, maybe you've never needed faith." For a beat, no one said a thing. Clayton looked caught, surprised, like he didn't expect to be answered like that. Not with fury, just with quiet truth. The camera operator later said he nearly forgot to move the shot. "She looked right into the lens," he told a friend, like she was talking to people in their living rooms. She continued, "People like to treat symbols like ornaments until it's theirs. That necklace, it's not for you, it's for me. It reminds me that I don't have to change for people who wouldn't last a week walking through what I've walked through." There it was, not a clapback, just the truth, and people could feel it at home. Clips were already being recorded, phones held up to TV screens, screenshots flying on Twitter. Some people didn't even know her name before that moment, but now they were searching it, tagging it, reposting it. In the studio, it was still quiet. Even Clayton's follow-up felt shaky. "Well, all right then," Jasmine shrugged. "You asked." But what happened after the cameras stopped rolling? The tension thickened. Jasmine unplugged her mic and stood slowly, smoothing her blazer as she glanced over at Clayton, who fiddled with his papers. The producer, Rachel Garvey, stepped forward with a stiff smile. "Congresswoman Crocker, thank you again for your time," she said, voice clipped. Jasmine smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't ask for a response. "I've got a flight in 2 hours," she said, "but I'm sure y'all will talk about this long after I'm gone." In the hallway, a junior staffer named Declan caught up to her. "Ma'am," he said, voice low, "that was something else." Jasmine turned slightly, waiting. My grandma always wore a cross too. That part where you talked about praying on the floor felt real." "Because it is," she said gently, then kept walking. Meanwhile, inside the control room, phones started buzzing. One of the assistant directors shouted, "People are already posting clips. Twitter's lighting up. TikTok, too." Rachel leaned over Clayton's shoulder, whispering sharply, "Next time, stick to policy. She just baptized you on your own show." Clayton didn't answer. He stared at the monitor showing Jasmine walking out of the building, then mumbled, "Didn't think she'd take it personal." But it wasn't personal. Jasmine's words hit hard because they spoke to something deeper, something millions carried with them but didn't always talk about. Faith, pain, endurance. Back in the car, Jasmine sat in the back seat of the black SUV, phone buzzing nonstop in her purse. Her aide, Tamika Preston, glanced at the screen and let out a low whistle. "Jazz, CNN clipped it. It's already got 80,000 views." Jasmine leaned her head back and closed her eyes. They'll twist it by tonight. Some might, Tamika admitted, but not all. You didn't give them heat, you gave them light. By early afternoon, the clip was everywhere. Conservative blogs called it dramatic and calculated, but comments on the videos told another story. One comment stood out. I'm not even religious, but what she said hit me. That kind of dignity, that's rare. Another said, that necklace wasn't the story, but her response. That's gonna live rent-free in my mind. But the real shock came hours later when someone from the host's own network leaked an internal email, changing everything. At 6:47 p.m., an anonymous Twitter account posted 4 screenshots showing an internal email thread from Ward's network. Timestamped just 1 hour after the broadcast. The subject line, Crockett Incident, Urgent Messaging. Beneath it, a string of messages between executives, PR reps, and Clayton himself. Nothing was redacted. It was a panic spiral. The first email came from Julia Debray, the network's head of communications. We need to get ahead of this. Frame the comment as observational, not derogatory. Then one from Clayton. Wasn't my best moment, but she made me look like I kicked a puppy. We need to shift focus. She's turning this into a sermon. Another exec replied bluntly, we underestimated her. Bad optics. It took less than 5 minutes for the screenshots to explode. The idea that Clayton had admitted fault in private while staying smug in public made things worse. In Sacramento, a young theology professor posted a 3-minute video breaking it down. The problem here isn't just that he mocked her, it's that when confronted with authenticity, he panicked, and the institution tried to spin it. That's not journalism, that's damage control. By 9:15 p.m., Lusher Crockett Cross was trending nationwide. Meanwhile, Jasmine was on a flight headed to Phoenix for a community event. She hadn't even seen the leak yet. Tamika was scrolling next to her, shaking her head as tweets poured in. Look at this one, she said, turning her screen. A pastor in Tallahassee just said your words got quoted in a sermon tonight. Jasmine smiled faintly, then closed her eyes again. I didn't say anything special, just told the truth. Sometimes, Tamika said, that's the loudest thing you can do. Elsewhere, the fallout deepened. That night, Clayton tried to get ahead of it. He went live on his personal YouTube channel from what looked like his kitchen. I've received a lot of messages today, he began, some supportive, some critical. I want to clarify something. My question to replug Crockett was never meant as an attack on her faith. The comments did not go well. You weren't asking, you were mocking, someone typed. She answered better than you deserved. Clayton ended the stream after 11 minutes. Meanwhile, inside her hotel room in Phoenix, Jasmine finally read the leaked emails. She just sat still, the phone lighting up in her hand. Then she opened the Notes app and started typing. The next morning, she posted a single tweet. If your instinct is to spin the truth, maybe you weren't standing on solid ground to begin with. 22 words, that was it. By lunchtime, that sentence was printed on posters at Howard University. Someone stenciled it onto a wall outside a church in Fresno. Teachers read it aloud in classrooms. A rapper in Detroit wove it into a freestyle during a live Instagram set. But not everyone was celebrating. Some wanted her silenced. 2 days later, inside a beige conference room in Washington, D.C., a private meeting was held on the 7th floor of the Capitol Hill complex. 5 party operatives, 2 senior aides from rival offices, and 1 high-level donor advisor sat around a glass table. On the screen at the end of the room, a paused frame of Jasmine Crockett's now viral TV moment, her cross necklace catching the light. She's turning into a symbol, one of the aides said. A martyr we didn't ask for. No, corrected another. She's turning into a narrative we don't control. There it was, the real problem. Not her beliefs, not her tone, control. A woman named Laurel Kinsey, an old-school strategist, stood up. We've seen this before. Someone gets a microphone, then a movement starts. If she gets too loud, she becomes the message, not the issues. So what do we do? Asked one of the younger aides. Laurel narrowed her eyes. You pressure. You isolate. Quietly make her an island. Calls were made that afternoon. Invitations rescinded. Scheduled appearances suddenly evaporated. The temperature shifted. Not publicly, but in ways that were hard to ignore.
Back in her D.C. office, Jasmine sat with Tamika when the phone rang. It was Alethea Marin, an old friend turned ethics chair at a liberal watchdog group. "Jazz," Althea said, "they're circling. I've already heard 2 donor boards whispering about whether you're becoming divisive." Jasmine let out a quiet sigh. "For wearing a necklace?" "No, for refusing to apologize for wearing it." Outside the window, the street buzzed with pedestrians, unaware of the slow burn happening inside this office. But Jasmine knew the game. She'd seen it play out on others, a slow drip of silence, then absence, then replacement. So Jasmine finally said, "What would you do?" There was a pause. Then Althea answered, "I'd hold the mic tighter." The next morning, Jasmine stood behind a wooden podium at a town hall meeting in Flagstaff, Arizona. The room was packed with voters. It wasn't supposed to be a major stop, just a scheduled check-in with local organizers. But something had changed. Her story had followed her, and the people showed up for more. "Last week," she began, "someone asked me if my necklace was a show. I told them it wasn't. I told them about my grandmother, about the nights I prayed alone. But what I didn't say is this." She gripped the sides of the podium. "Faith is only performative if you're pretending. I'm not pretending, and I'm not backing up just because someone else got uncomfortable with what keeps me grounded." There was no applause, not at first, just nods, deep ones, the kind people give when they're remembering something of their own. Then someone in the back stood up and said, "Say that again." She did. After the event, a woman in her 60s came up to her, eyes wet. "My husband made me hide my cross for years," she said. "You made me take it out of the drawer." Jasmine didn't cry, but she held that woman's hand for a long time. That Friday, just before noon, something shifted in the media tone. Subtle at first. Headlines didn't mention the necklace anymore. Instead, they brought up old comments Jasmine had made during her early campaign days, clipped out of context. One read, "Crockett once questioned law enforcement's bias, too radical for Congress." Another, "Can a politician with strong personal beliefs lead objectively?" The language was calculated, not accusing, but planting seeds, casting shadows that didn't need to be real. They just needed to grow. By 3 p.m., her Wikipedia page had been edited 3 times. "They're doing it," Tamika said, pacing in Jasmine's office. "The smear machine is on." Jasmine remained at her desk, her phone sitting screen, unread messages stacking in her inbox. They want people to stop hearing the truth and start second-guessing the messenger. "That's exactly what they want," Tamika replied. Outside their window, fog rolled in over the Capitol, the kind of gray that made everything look a little less defined. That night, a popular primetime show aired a segment on Jasmine titled "The Rise of the Preacher Politician." For 15 minutes, the host went over her past cases, her church affiliations, and framed her cross as part of a branding strategy. They brought on a so-called body language expert to dissect her posture during the original interview, suggesting her calm demeanor was scripted. People were eating it up. The video racked up over 1.2 million views in the first 6 hours. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She waited, then just after midnight, she posted a video to her Instagram. No filter, no makeup, hair wrapped, wearing an oversized t-shirt, sitting on her couch. "Let's talk," she said simply. I'm not shocked by the smear campaign. I knew it would come. But let me be clear. I don't regret anything I said because what I said came from truth. And truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand. She leaned forward. I've never hidden who I am. Not in the courtroom, not in Congress, not in church, and I won't start now just because some people get nervous when a black woman speaks with conviction. The comment section flooded instantly, support, pushback, questions, but the overwhelming tone was one of resolve. People had seen the storm hit and watched her stand in the middle of it without flinching. In Indianapolis, a retired teacher named Selma Beck called her daughter in tears. I don't know her, she said, but I feel like she's standing for all of us. In Tulsa, a 14-year-old named Brandon wrote a message to Jasmine's office. Your necklace is not a threat. Your truth is not a threat. Please don't stop. And in Phoenix, Tamika read that note aloud the next morning while Jasmine packed for her next flight. Where to next? Jasmine asked. Cincinnati, Tamika replied. Community round table, already sold out. Jasmine smiled, not wide, but real. But while her support was growing, someone upstairs was preparing to take a different shot, a legal one, with just enough teeth to draw blood. The envelope arrived on a Monday morning, hand-delivered to her office. Thick paper, no return address. Tamika found it on the desk when she got in, and her stomach turned the second she saw the seal. House Committee on Ethics. Jasmine walked in minutes later, holding her coffee. Tamika didn't speak, she just pointed. Jasmine picked it up, slid her thumb under the flap, and pulled out 3 pages. An official complaint had been filed against her. Allegations of inappropriate use of personal religious symbols in federal spaces, violation of the Establishment Clause, and leveraging personal faith to influence public discourse. Tamika finally broke the silence. This is manufactured. Jasmine handed her the papers. Of course it is. They both knew how it worked. Anyone could file a complaint. But when it came from inside, it carried weight. The news leaked within hours. That evening, the story broke on 3 different outlets. They didn't need evidence. They had the headline, Crockett under ethics scrutiny for cross-necklace incident. In the weeks following, things turned colder. A few longtime allies went quiet. Invitations dried up again. Every appearance Jasmine made was under a microscope. Pundits debated whether her calm demeanor was defiance or delusion. But Jasmine never changed her routine. 2 weeks later, she was invited to speak at a university event in Charleston, West Virginia. She almost didn't go, but something in her gut told her it wasn't just about her anymore. The auditorium was full, students, faculty, local residents, and right there in the front row, a girl no older than 10 with cornrows and a tiny silver cross around her neck. Jasmine noticed her immediately. She spoke without notes that night. They filed an ethics complaint because I wore something that means something to me, she said. But they didn't ask if I'd ever used my faith to deny someone their rights. They didn't ask if I'd ever weaponized it to silence someone else because they know I haven't. She looked at the girl in the front row. What I wear doesn't threaten the Constitution. It threatens the illusion that you can box people in and still call it fairness. Afterward, the little girl walked up to her, tugged on Jasmine's sleeve, and said, I wear mine because it makes me feel brave. Jasmine knelt to meet her eyes. Me too. Back in D.C., the complaint was quietly dismissed 10 days later. No press conference, no apology, just a footnote buried under other announcements. But the damage was already done, or so they thought, because what happened next wasn't orchestrated by a committee or funded by a PAC. It was something far more unpredictable. But just when it seemed like the fire might die down, something unexpected reignited it. And this time, it came from Clayton Ward. It happened on a Thursday out of nowhere. Clayton went live on his podcast, Ward Unfiltered. This episode was different. No guests, no music intro, just Clayton seated in what looked like a basement studio. "I've been thinking about that interview for weeks," he said, eyes locked on the camera. "I asked a question I thought was clever, sharp. I thought I was going to pin her down, make her uncomfortable, but she was the realest person in that room." People began screen recording the moment. Clayton leaned back in his chair. We throw around words like values and integrity, but when someone like Jasmine Crockett shows up wearing hers in plain sight, we get nervous, or worse, we get petty. The comment section exploded. "Is this real? I never thought I'd hear this from him." He didn't apologize in the traditional sense, no dramatic gestures, but he admitted what no one expected. "She made me look at myself, and I didn't like what I saw." That sentence was clipped and reposted within minutes. By noon, the story hit every platform. Clayton Ward acknowledges mistake in Crockett interview. Jasmine didn't comment right away. She was in Kansas City that day, meeting with a group of youth organizers. She hadn't even seen the clip until someone pulled it up on their phone and held it out to her. She watched the video in silence, then handed the phone back and said, "If that's real, it's a start." Later that night, she tweeted, "Truth makes people uncomfortable. Growth starts there." At a diner in Amarillo, Texas, an older man who had voted Republican for 40 years told the waitress, "I didn't like what he said to her, but I respect how she answered." "That's what you teach your kids," he continued. "Respect doesn't always come from agreement. Sometimes it comes from seeing someone hold steady when everything around them tries to push them off balance."
But just as things were cooling down, a viral moment from Jasmine's past came to light, one that forced the country to look even deeper. On a quiet Sunday evening, a grainy video surfaced online, just 30 seconds long. It showed a younger Jasmine Crockett, maybe 21, speaking passionately in a student forum at Prairie View A&M University. The video had only 187 views when it was first posted, but it took off fast. By Monday morning, it had hit 1 million. The reaction was instant and complex. Some praised her consistency, others tried to weaponize it, questioning whether someone who spoke so freely about faith in college could ever be neutral in public office. Cable news ran the clip on a loop. Back at her office, Jasmine sat with her laptop open, watching the same 30 seconds play again and again. Tamika walked in holding a printed copy of a new op-ed. "You're in the Atlantic. They're calling it the Crockett Doctrine." Jasmine looked up. "What does that even mean?" Tamika shrugged. "That public faith doesn't have to mean exclusion. That authenticity in politics is disruptive." Jasmine closed her laptop. "I didn't ask for doctrine. I just didn't want to be silenced." "Well, too late," Tamika said. "Now you're a symbol." The next day, Jasmine returned to the House floor for a scheduled vote. As she passed through the hall, she noticed colleagues nodding in acknowledgement, one even whispering, "Stay strong." Jasmine wasn't looking to go viral again. She wasn't chasing headlines. But what she had done across years, across states, across that one quiet moment on live television was tell the truth, and somehow that had stuck with people. Not because it was loud, but because it was real. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about the conflicts in Congress, don't forget to like and subscribe to Congressional Conflicts.